there comes a point in your journey when you don't need more information or education or expertise or experience. You need initiation. You need to believe that you are good enough and ready to start building your legacy, whether it is to write that book or create a course framework or build your personal brand or your business strategy. And it all starts with your original story, the one story that only you can tell. And when you tap into that story, that creates your niche that nobody else can compete with you. And we unlock our original story by completing our heroine's rebirth. Now, the concept of a hero or heroine's journey is a narrative archetype that very closely resembles our human experience. And every book or movie or myth or legend that you've ever come across will tend to go through this narrative arc. Now, the hero's journey tends to be a more outward journey of success and achievement. And the heroine's journey goes one step further because therapist Maureen Murdoch noticed that females tended to achieve success in a masculine world, but still felt burnt out or disconnected or not quite fulfilled. And then that would then spark an additional journey of reconnecting back with their feminine in order to find wholeness. But in reality, we all have feminine and masculine parts of ourselves. And this is why I argue that everybody needs to take their heroine's journey, regardless of how you identify. Because without being in tune and balanced with your feminine and masculine sides, you will also not feel that wholeness and completeness. It would be like operating while still being disconnected or suppressing a very big major part of yourself. So it's also going to block your success because you're not using all your best gifts or the best way that you truly operate. And regardless of how you identify, everybody has the same hormones to some level. Women still have testosterone, men still have estrogen. Or you might even relate it to right brain, left brain, although it's not necessarily related to gender, where the right brain tends to be more creative and abstract and tuned in with emotions and intuition, and the left side tends to be more logical, problem solving. And we both use the right and left parts of our brains. And this is why I say that the heroine's rebirth will be key to truly unlocking your original story and your success and your legacy that you are meant to build for your lifetime. Now, there are so many different ways that we use the words masculine and feminine, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how I define them for the sake of this video so you understand what I'm really referring to. So I tend to use the feminine and masculine to refer to our skills, our gifts, our operating styles, with the feminine being related to our ideas, our creativity, our intuitive gifts, our sensorial gifts, the things that we know without logical and rational explanation, our input, versus the masculine, which tends to be our routines, our structures, our output, the tangible thing, our logic, our rational solutions, our progress, our productivity. And we also see that in order to bring those gifts out, we also need different operating styles. For us to have the best ideas, we need fluidity, flexibility, flow for everything to come out. We need to be in tune with how we feel, what we want, what we're passionate about, whether we have energy or the focus or the emotional resonance to do it that day. Versus the masculine, which will find the answer or will move forward by creating the structure first, or creating the routine, or creating the strategy. And that's how they then move through. So some people who might be more feminine dominant, if they are not first using those skills or using very fluid and flexible operating systems, they are never going to tap into their strongest skills. So if they're building their legacy and they are not in tune with their feminine masculine balance, it is like cutting off a big part of a way that they can have the most success in their business. And so some other words that I like to use are flow and form, understanding when we need to be in flow and understanding when we need to bring something into form. Now, the reason that I'm talking about feminine masculine balance as the most important thing before you start building your legacy is because of three main reasons. Now, the first main reason is that when you are tapped into your feminine masculine balance, you will maximize your productivity, because some people will need more fluid and flexible operating systems in order to have the most success, in order to get the best ideas, or to be the most creative, or to even get the most done. Some people operate like an on-off button. They will have energy and emotional waves where they can get a lot done in a very short amount of time, and other days where they can't get anything done at all. So if they are not in rhythm with that, this is often what leads people to go all in on a project and start building their legacy only to run out of steam and give up altogether. So when you master your individual feminine masculine balance, this is how you finish the projects that you start. Some people are also top to bottom processors. and other people are bottom to top processors. So top to bottom processors, they see all the possibilities, the bigger picture, every possible option first. So they actually need time to whittle and process down all the ideas until they see what it is that they actually want to move forward with. So if these people are trying to force really masculine systems of routine and structure and to-do lists, then they might actually force action before the clarity is there. And so they build something that is not really in line with their legacy. Whereas bottom to top processes, they get to the bigger picture, they get to the bigger meaning by doing the action step by step. So it's a very different operating style. And because everybody is genetically and energetically unique, everybody will have a very specific different type of feminine masculine balance or different way that they need to combine feminine and masculine operating systems. So if you are trying to follow someone else's one fits all model, you might realize that it doesn't exactly work for you, or you don't really get the same success as the person who created it. So often we try so hard to fit somebody else's model and we don't understand why it's not working. It's because we haven't integrated into our own feminine masculine balance. So absolutely, we have so much to learn from everybody's different style, but you then need to integrate it and adopt what you know will work for you and disregard what you know will not work for you. So this is why understanding your feminine masculine balance is going to be key to maximizing productivity, making sure that you finish your project and making sure that you are really in line with the best ideas or the way that your best ideas come out. The second main reason is that understanding our feminine masculine balance is also key to understand when we get stuck. And I like to liken this to walking, right? Sometimes you need to take a left step, sometimes you need to take a right step. Because as I said before, we all have the feminine masculine, but also the feminine masculine is what makes something whole. You can't have only ideas without never implementing it, right? Then your ideas will go nowhere. Your ideas never come into form. You don't turn the intangible into the tangible, the input into the output. So we always have to be moving between the two. I mentor a lot of people to help them either build their business or their legacy book or their brand. And this is one of the biggest things that I see is that people get stuck in one side or the other. So let's say you get stuck in the feminine. They might be honing an idea and processing and planning for years. But because they haven't actually taken a masculine step, then there is no product, there's no business, they're not actually building anything at all. And sometimes what happens is that they just take one small little step and they realize that the 6 months that they've spent planning is completely useless because the steps showed them that they actually needed to go in a different direction. So you really want to also be making sure that you are constantly moving between the two. Other times people get really stuck in the masculine. They're head down, they're doing all the steps, and 6 months later they come up for air and they're like, oh my gosh, I've built in completely the wrong direction. Or they haven't taken that step back to look at the bigger picture and to still check if this is the best idea or if the idea can even be bigger or if it's still the best way to build it. So sometimes even getting stuck in the masculine will also really impact your project or will impact the way that you're building your legacy brand. Now, the third reason you need to understand your feminine masculine balance is because this is how you write your most original story. Now, the original story is a concept I go deeper into the 10-day storytelling challenge, and I'll post a link below if you want to take that. It is part of the initiation package where you get all of my courses, and they will also take you through a lot of this back work to help you get ready and prepare to build your legacy. But to explain it quickly here, your original story is the story that only you can tell. It will pull from your lived experiences, the unique way that you piece together information to come up with your unique perspective, your thought leadership. It will also use your very specific gifts, and it will also pull from who you naturally are. So these things are influenced by our very unique mix of our feminine and masculine balance. So if there are parts of your gifts that are coming from the feminine or the masculine that are suppressed, it's like trying to type without one arm. You're never going to reach your optimal potential, your optimal success, or write your most original story. And because of our history, a lot of female gifts have been suppressed. They have been labeled as crazy, or because they didn't bring in money or productivity, we devalued them. And so a lot of times we haven't even developed them, especially creativity or intuitive skills. So it often also requires rewiring a lot of those masculine narratives or belief systems that we often say, this is not making money, so I should give up. This is not producing something, so does this really have value? Versus the depth of what you might see from your feminine gifts, or the depth of insight, or the depth of the solution that you see that actually requires lots of mental work and creativity to get to that specific idea that can save 10 hours of output, right? So we also really need to redefine how we activate these gifts. And this is why I always say that we must lead with the feminine. There's one thing I've seen so often in my own life and in all the people that I mentor is that we often try to lead with the masculine. We lead with those narratives that it must make money. What's the most probable thing that's going to sell? And then 6 months down the track, we check in with ourselves and we say, I'm not even passionate about this. This does not even feel good. And I can tell you how many side hustles and online businesses I've built this way, where I've invested so much time and money building them. And 6 months later, I'm like, this is not even aligned to me. I'm bored. I'm burnt out. I am not excited about this. And I waste so much time because I led with the masculine. Now, if you lead with the feminine, you first ask yourself, what are my best skills? What am I passionate about? What feels emotionally good to me? And when we lead with that, we better direct the masculine to build something that is more aligned to exactly who we are. So those are the main reasons why I'm always talking about why completing your heroine's rebirth and understanding your feminine masculine balance is going to be key to have the most success when you build your legacy. Now you might ask, well, how do I know if I am in tune with my feminine masculine balance? And I usually say to look for symptoms of either the dysfunctional feminine or the dysfunctional masculine. So symptoms of the dysfunctional feminine is when we are not in tune with our internal guidance and our intuition. So then what you'll often see is lots of second guessing and self-doubt and not believing that your ideas are good enough, or that your intuition is correct, or that your creativity is an amazing idea. And so often we will block even exploring those things. And the dysfunctional masculine is when we get stuck in creating or producing or moving forward. So these can be symptoms that we are out of balance in one area. And I go a lot more into this in my 4-step initiation, Find Your Fuck Queen Flow, which is also in the self-activation vault. But the idea is that if you have any side that is dysfunctional, it is going to make finishing your legacy project 10 times harder, because this is when you are constantly going through 10 different decisions and you get really stuck with the decision overwhelm, or you end up rewriting something 100 times, or you don't know how to edit it, or you don't know how to present it and feel proud about it, or you keep reaching burnout because you don't know how you best operate. There are so many ways that if you have the dysfunctional feminine or masculine, that it will block your success. It will block you from finishing your project. And this also comes from my own personal story. I've had my own business for 15 years and I built it in a very masculine way. I tried to be consistent every day and set my to-do list, and I was always reaching burnout. And it took a nervous breakdown of suddenly not being able to do anything at all that I started to realize that I could maximize my productivity in very different ways. And new different gifts also started coming online. And I started building business in a very feminine way and started having more success and more energy and more creativity by mastering this feminine masculine balance. So the heroine's rebirth really pulls from my lived experiences, plus my 15 years experience in storytelling and branding and content and marketing, and then merging them together so that you can then use the very specific stages of your own heroine's rebirth and map them onto either your book outline or your course framework or your business brand or your business strategy. Now, the reason this is crucial is because the heroine's rebirth represents a transformational arc. And everything that you do should show this transformational arc. That is what makes it interesting. And that is also what makes people create a way that they want to move through to the next step. Now, if I was to map the heroine's rebirth or the hero or heroine's journey on an arc, it very much looks like, kind of setting the scene, and then a blip will happen, usually in the first quarter, and then they'll kind of have a little bit of up and down as they slowly build up, and then boom, there'll be a big arc or catalyst or plot twist, and then we finish on a reflection. And this is what keeps the interest happening, but it's also really important in any transformational arc. So if you apply this to a session, for example, you would never start a session hitting them with the biggest climax or plot twist. It would just be too much straight up. You'll usually start by setting the background or setting the scene so people feel comfortable. You get to know their story, you open up that vulnerability, and then you might do a little shift at the beginning just to kind of set the mood. And then around 3/4 of the session, you will slowly build up and have that major transformation. And then you'll allow for time for integration afterwards and reflection. You also wouldn't finish on a plot twist and just leave them hanging, for example. So we see how this arc is almost relative to all areas of our lives. Same if you were building a course framework, you wouldn't hit them with the transformation straight up because you need to build the background. You need to set the scene of your methodology, why you came to this type of framework. So by the time they reach the transformation or the change, they already know all the background. They know what all your terms mean. They know how it all fits together. And that is how you get to the transformation. It's the same in your branding or your business strategy. You will constantly go through different arcs as you tell your story. Sometimes it will be big plot twists. Sometimes you'll just be setting the background scene of what was your lived experience, what was your backstory to building your business. So no matter what is your legacy goal that you are trying to map this onto, your heroine's rebirth can be used in so many different ways. It is so applicable to everything in your life, besides also being your very own individual inner journey to help you activate your heroine ego and step into main character energy, because that is also crucial to have success in your brand. If you are not the heroine of your brand, if you are not in main character energy, it is really hard to sell anything at all because people are also buying your transformation. You have to speak with conviction and clarity and confidence, and you find all of those things through your heroine's journey. Now, this is a framework that I have created because it takes the heroine's journey one step further. The heroine's journey unlocks the idea of the feminine realignment. Then what? What do you do with it? How do you turn this into a brand? How do you sell it? How do you inspire and lead with your story, with your lived experiences? You are sitting on an entire brand. And because I have experience in both self-activation and mentorship and storytelling, I love to say that we do this shadow work through storytelling, because each of these 12 steps will still be a way that you can dive into your own backstory, see what blocks might still be there, and also see what you have achieved and what was your individual transformational arc. It's also a really great way to get out that emotional dumping and then turn that into inspired storytelling. And the heroine's rebirth can be used in many different ways depending on which legacy project you want to put it on. Each person will set their legacy goal and we work on it together through writing workshops and branding one-on-one with me and getting your marketing strategy. So it functions as both a healing space, but also a storytelling space and learning how to master your original story, because a lot of the aspects in your history are very deep and heavy themes. And there are ways to use storytelling so those deep, heavy themes don't feel like an emotional dump on your audience. It feels like inspired storytelling. It is uplifting, not down-putting. So there'll be so many storytelling aspects as well that I'm going to teach on top of this during the Heroine's Rebirth group program. But here I want to go through the 12 steps so you can start to trigger those creative juices and start to see what are your main themes that might make up a course program or your chapter or your book outline or your business themes or your brand themes, and what are the transformational arcs that you've been through that you can communicate to your audience that they will also achieve by either reading your book or taking your course or following your brand. Now, the first step of the Heroine's Rebirth is evaluation. It's an evaluation of your backstory. And as many of you will know, you're already probably some part through your Heroine's Rebirth, but you can probably remember that time when you were evaluating what's wrong in my life, what needs to change. But we also have so many stories in our backstory. So by moving through the Heroine's Rebirth, it starts to give us an arc or an angle of which stories to include. which parts of your backstory are important to reveal that make sense to the decisions or the actions that your heroine is taking. And when I studied creative writing in university, something that always stuck with me is that you don't have to have 20 pages of your backstory. Now, you might start by writing 20 pages, but when you whittle that down to 5 paragraphs, those 5 paragraphs can still hold the same weight and emotion as the 20 pages. That is inspired storytelling. It's the absence of what's not there, but still coming out in the words that makes it a powerful story. It still portrays the same message. You don't necessarily need to share all the deep, dark details of every story, right? So this process will also just help you master your storytelling. What's important to tell? Now, the next step along the journey is the catalyst. Now, this is the challenge or the inciting incident. Something major goes wrong. Now, if we were to think about a blockbuster movie, a big challenge comes and the hero has to go out and save the world. But in your own life, that challenge might have been a debilitating illness. It might have been the death of someone close to you. It might have been a breakdown. It might have been a divorce. There are so many things that create that catalyst, that challenge, that inciting incident. But the reason I call it the catalyst or the inciting incident is that it's usually not the whole reason that everything came tumbling down. It's related to the backstory. So now you start to see which parts of your backstory actually led to the catalyst. Now we're just going to move along to a couple more points so I can show you how it all links back. Next, we come to the collapse, and this is what falls away. What do you lose? What is the major change? We then move to the void, that in between of the old life and the new life. Now, this is where we start to see that this whole arc happens because of very specific things in your backstory. So, for example, what happened to me, my inciting incident or catalyst was that I lost many things in a divorce. And this led to a collapse that I had a nervous breakdown and I started using alcohol to cope. And then I came into the void where I started to reflect on all the things that were wrong with my life, all the things that led me to there. Now, this is important because it relates to my backstory. So you might ask, why did I lose everything in a divorce? Because my name wasn't on everything. Why did I have a breakdown? Because I suddenly came into a safe space. And so we start to see which of the backstories are relevant to my collapse, to the descent into the void. We start to see then that the stories of growing up in a volatile childhood led me to volatile relationships, led me to lose my power, led me to have a system overwhelm. So then we start to see exactly which stories I need to share for my heroine's rebirth. So in the void, your heroine starts to get this idea of why it went wrong and what went wrong. It's this reflection stage and starting to find answers. And this leads to the awakening. This leads to the possibility of how to get out of this and how to change this. What now are they going to do different? This will lead them into the exploration stage. And I often think about this part in a movie. This is usually where you see them cutting through a whole bunch of different scenes. So we put this onto a rom-com. It's like, girl can never find a relationship. And now she has to go to a wedding and she has a breakdown that no one ever loves her. And she'll see this answer to try dating a different type of guy. And then they'll do all this montage of them being happy at the cafe and going on holiday. It gives you this feeling of exploration, all these different experiences that she's having. I know certainly after my void, mine was trying all these different spiritual practices and trying all these different adventures. We then get to the revalue when suddenly, because of this descent and this change and this awakening and this exploration, suddenly a new path starts to emerge. And you can kind of look at the axis, how we had the evaluation, and now we're at a revalue. So even if you were to write a book or create a course, around halfway through, you want to start switching the tides, start switching the energy. We're fixing, now we're going to rise. We're descending, now we're going to ascend. Now the revalue is crucial because again, we're looking at what's working, what's not working for this new life, for this new path. We then get to the tether where we start to see the things that are working and we invest more time and energy into this. We clutch to something and we say, this is working. And you might have another montage moment, right? Of all these different things that start going right. We start to see this realignment. We start to see an even bigger shift in their life where things are majorly changing now. And so far, you can also start to see how each of these points comes with a very specific revelation or solution or idea or moment or arc, each one starts with a point A and ends with a point B. We can feel movements and shifts by shifts by shifts, even if it's a mindset shift, even if it's a new solution shift, even if it's a new life experience that help us see the next stage. Right? And this is what propels somebody to want to keep engaging with your story, with your book, with your course, because you can feel these shifts. And you can also start to see how these shifts are starting to get bigger now. They're starting to become more structural in your own personal life or in the life of your heroine. And this then leads to a major plot twist. And we can see this is about 3/4 of the way through the journey. A big thing happens. And this plot twist reflects the journey that they've come before this. Whether the plot twist comes from an external or an internal moment, it might be that someone did a major realignment and cut off all their friends, and then suddenly they're in this major plot twist where they're all alone and they discover what real love is. Or it might be that something happens to them, but because of every shift that's come before them, they approach it in a new way. So, whatever it is, this plot twist is a major turning point that reflects all of the steps that you've come before on your heroine's rebirth. This leads to the final breakthrough moment, that major shift that happens after the plot twist. And then we finish with the rebrand. This is when the new identity finally comes out, or the new lifestyle starts being lived. The legacy happens. And then we go back to revalue, the evaluation stage. Now, you'll see it's kind of a little bit above the evaluation stage, because I believe that we have many heroines' rebirth in our lives. We have many cyclical journeys. And this, again, is one of those potentially feminine versus masculine ways. We think about the masculine journey that it's just one exponential journey of progression. But I've definitely noticed in my own journey that I've had many small deaths and rebirths, and that I actually have grown a lot in cycles. I call it my return. It's very much like the seasons or even the monthly cycle. You'll have 1 week or one season of lots of growth and activity and productivity, but you'll also have one season or 1 week of reflection and low energy. You'll get to that next stage and you're like, well, now what's wrong and what's right in my life? And this is what growth and evolution is. We live in constant flux. You'll probably go through a whole nother little heroine's rebirth, but focusing on a different element of your backstory. And then you might even start to see how you can write many different books or many different courses based on the different transformational arcs of what you were healing at the time. This is how we can communicate that clarity as well. Who is this for? What transformation can you expect by reading my book or taking my course? It might not be hundreds of transformations. It might be one very specific thing that people will take that very specific course to have that very specific transformation that you've also had and that you are now teaching them. So now we start to see how our heroine's rebirth can be mapped onto building any part of your legacy, and how when you think about each step as leading to new insights or a mini transformational arc that gets you to the next shift, this is also how you create movement for your audience. Now, that is just a very basic explanation of my heroine's rebirth journey. And if you want to go deeper into this and you are really ready to build your legacy or to finish your book or to create your legacy framework or your personal brand or your business, this is what I'm doing over the 6 month. We meet every 2 weeks to do writing masterclasses and workshops, and having that community to get that feedback, but also having that accountability as well, so that you do finish the project, and that over the time you can also hone your communication and your storytelling and start getting clearer about what is your arc and angle, because the more that you also soundboard it in a group and to see what other people perceive your stories to be telling, this is also how we really make our stories stronger and clearer and more interesting, and to bring that element of storytelling. And what's key to this is that over that 6 month journey, you'll also have one-on-ones with me to help build out your marketing strategy and your audience building, so that you have a ready to sell audience by the time that you finish your product. This is the big mistake that people make. They spend so much time getting the thing done that when they come to market or they're ready to share their legacy, they get crickets because they haven't been building while they were writing. So you really want to have a ready to sell audience as well by the end of it. Now, you might already have started a book or already have a business. This is still so crucial, because if you have not really really had easy success, or you feel that the brand is still not really attuned to you, or maybe your authentic individual self is still not coming out loud, you're still not really tapping into your thought leadership, this will also help you awaken your voice. This is really this path of what I call invisible, right? Going from invisible to visible, learning to share with confidence, learning to tap into every part of yourself and your gifts so that you can step into your optimal success, contentment, and fulfillment. And those are the three pillars, the three signs that you are aligned to your purpose. So this process will actually have a double-edged outcome where you will also understand your feminine masculine balance. You will also complete your heroine's journey. This is what I do as a self-activation mentor. So you can find how to complete your project. And you'll also learn how to write your story in a way that sells, inspires, and leads others and becomes the core foundation of your entire legacy. And if you're still in that initiation and building stage, then you can start with my initiation courses, which are the 10-day storytelling challenge, which will help you unblock your story and stop feeling invisible and learn how to turn emotional dumping into inspired storytelling. The second one is Find Your Fuck Queen Flow, which is how to activate your inner guru and rebalance your feminine masculine so you can step into your productivity and not procrastination. And the third course is called Dysfunctional. It's a business niche activation where you get out of your dysfunctional zone and burnout so that you can activate your functional gifts and understand how to create your perfect niche and your unique marketing strategy. And that has an element of human design. And so those three courses will also help you plan out and get very specific about your business niche. And you will also clear out a lot of these things that we've been talking about. Those are included in the Heroine's Rebirth. So if you know that you are ready to go deeper and you are ready to build your legacy, then join me in an intimate group of maximum 12 women on a Heroine's Rebirth. So I hoped that this video unlocked many things for you and that it is useful for you building your brand. Because if there is one thing that I'm very passionate about is moving the money into the hands of all of these brands, because this is how we change the world, because your story matters and building your legacy matters. And the world needs you to become the heroine of your journey and be the plot twist that nobody saw coming.